Welcome into CBS News 24/7. I'm Juliette Goodrich. We are just one day away from President Trump announcing new tariffs, the potential impact, and what it means for Americans. Plus 20 hours and counting, the dramatic marathon speech playing out on the Senate floor. And can AI help you find a date? The new game that's helping singles test out their flirting skills. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Reciprocal tariffs expected to roll out tomorrow. President Trump hasn't given many details about the tariffs, promising to reveal all at a ceremony in the Rose Garden tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. The title of the event is Make America Wealthy Again. So White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt remained pretty tight-lipped about the details in a press conference this afternoon. Let's listen in.
The president said last night he has made a decision and a determination. I was with him in the Oval Office earlier, and he is going to announce that decision tomorrow. I don't want to get ahead of the president. This is obviously a very big day. He's with his trade and tariff team right now, perfecting it to make sure this is a perfect deal for the American people and the American worker, and you will all find out in about 24 hours from now.
All right, that was the briefing. CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi has been following the story for us. Olivia, thanks for joining us. So a lot of hints as to those tariffs. Are we getting any idea as to what it will be and the nations impacted?
Well, Jules, not many details out of that press briefing today from Caroline Leavitt. She did say that Trump is still meeting with his economic advisors to talk specifically about what exactly they're going to be targeting tomorrow. We're very scant on the details. Something that the Treasury Secretary has been saying lately, though, is what he's calling the dirty 15%. It's not a 15% tariff, but it's on the 15% of countries that have particularly high trading deficits with the United States. So think about China, think about some of our European partners, think about Canada even. Donald Trump, or the President Trump rather, has been talking about that 250% tariff that Canadians have on U.S. dairy imports. Trump has signaled that out specifically as something he is likely to put a reciprocal tariff on. But as I mentioned, we still have very little detail specifically about what will be targeted. We've heard certain industries that could be targeted. We know Trump put on some automobile tariffs earlier in the week, but we could potentially see some tariffs on the lumber industry, on the pharmaceutical industry. And then, of course, there's the question ultimately of how this impacts the American consumer. What does this ultimately come down to in terms of their pocketbook, what they will be paying? We know a tariff is something that's paid on the people who are paying for the product, not necessarily the people who are developing the product. So it's certainly a question of what is going to be passed down to the American consumer. The White House is being very tight-lipped on specifically what that is, saying we will learn more tomorrow in this event that will be happening at the White House, which they're billing Make America Healthy Again, or Make America Wealthy Again, rather. Sorry, there's a lot going on, a lot of making America different things with this White House.
There is, and we're talking about 24 hours from now. Let's talk specifically, though, about Make America Wealthy Again. That's the coin phrase. It's the event. So what do we know about that?
Well, we know it will be happening tomorrow at the White House. It's a particularly big event where they've invited a lot of CEOs to come to the White House, particularly for this event. What I'll be watching for specifically is any from the big three. So that's Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors. Those are the big automakers. And of course, that's a contingency that Trump really had to kind of flirt with during the campaign. These are people that not only did he go to Michigan and Wisconsin, where a lot of these auto plants still are, but also their workers. These are people that Trump appealed to. Think about UAW, the auto workers, as well, that union. I'll be watching to see if they're there tomorrow, because they're some of the first industries that are really absorbing some of the pain from these auto tariffs. So it'll be interesting to see if Trump is still able to keep up that relationship with those CEOs there. But we know this will be a particularly big event at the White House tomorrow afternoon. Trump has billed this as Liberation Day. It's something he's been talking about pretty consistently, not only him, but Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. This has kind of been his really big project for the first several months of this administration. So a lot to be watching out for tomorrow at the White House. It's going to be a particularly very big event that they have been hyping up for quite some time now.
Yes, we'll be covering it. Olivia Rinaldi. Olivia, thank you so much. We are also watching Wall Street as investors brace for that reciprocal tariff announcement from President Donald Trump. The closing bell rang just moments ago. The Dow slipped slightly. So let's take a look at our interactive stock market heat map. This is brought to you by FinViz. It's showing the top 500 stocks in real time. So red indicating the stock is down, green indicating the stock is up, and the size of the box, that represents the market cap. So CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joining us now. Kelly, so many questions, but let's zero in on the word tariff. What that means and how exactly it works and who pays them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of start with how it works. And I know our fantastic producing team has some graphics to help me explain this. So a tariff is essentially a tax that's charged on any goods that would be imported into the U.S. if there is a tariff enacted on a specific country or a specific industry, right? So if right now, China is a good example, we are importing any goods from China, there is a 10% tariff. That means you are paying a 10% tax on that good that's coming in. Now, in terms of who actually pays for this, the president has said that other countries will pay for this. And in fact, it's actually the American businesses or the businesses that are importing those goods. They're buying them from one country and they're bringing them into the U.S. They are the ones that are actually paying that tax. Now, just for some clarity, though, I've talked to a number of analysts about what the president might have actually meant in terms of who's paying it and that the other countries might be paying it. One, they would be paying and suffering if their companies are not able to sell easily into the U.S. So that would be one form of payment, more of a suffering, if you will. And then another is that those companies from other countries might lower their prices to offset that tariff to still make it attractive for companies to buy from them. Finally, who collects it? Where does the money go? So right now, Border Patrol actually collects it at the port of entry when that's coming, that container, that good is coming into the U.S. and that money goes to the Treasury. However, the president has identified an external revenue service potentially that they might create in sort of contrast to the internal revenue service that collects taxes from all of us. They haven't, though, gave clear sort of an idea of what this is going to look like. That's just something that has been floated. Now, who ultimately pays for it, Jules? How does it impact consumers? Well, that company that has paid that tax when they're importing a good from somewhere else, they likely pass it on to us, the consumer. And that's really why you have heard everyone talk about tariffs and inflation and higher prices.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you hearing from businesses about how they are navigating these waters?
So as Olivia said, there's just so much uncertainty. We don't know what countries, we don't know what products are going to be announced tomorrow, what industries. And so I have talked to executives in the auto industry, in the manufacturing industry, in the retail industry, you name it. And there's just such a need for clarity because these businesses are going to have to either one, bring manufacturing here, which is part of the reason that the president is trying to put these tariffs on to incentivize domestic production of goods here. And that's going to cost millions, billions of dollars in some cases. They have to determine, is this a long-term thing or is this another negotiation tactic? And then the other thing is what countries, because maybe you're sourcing something from China, but you can also get that product as a business from Vietnam or Thailand or maybe a country in Africa. So just that clarity of what countries to turn to, whether you have to invest, it requires so many decisions and a lot of time and money invested. And so everyone that I'm talking to is just going, I'm paralyzed right now, and I'm looking for that clarity, Jules.
Yeah, we're all looking to you to answer that, but we'll know in 24 hours. Kelly, as always, thank you so much. All right, to Capitol Hill now, where Senator Cory Booker is still delivering a marathon speech. The Democrat has been talking all night and afternoon. He started at 7 p.m. Eastern time yesterday and is still speaking at this hour. That's more than 20 hours and counting. Booker says he is protesting against President Trump's policies. So let's take a listen.
I rise tonight because I believe sincerely that our country is in crisis. And I believe that not in a partisan sense, because so many of the people that have been reaching out to my office in pain, in fear, having their lives upended. So many of them identify themselves as Republicans. I am going to fight for your Social Security. I'm going to fight to protect the agency. I'm going to fight against unnecessary cuts that hurt the service it gives. And today into tomorrow, I'm going to stand as long as I can. As long as I can, I'm going to stand and read stories like this. Please let me know how you are responding to this situation and what steps you, Senator Booker, are taking to defend our Constitution and the rule of law. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. I hope at this early morning hour at almost 8 o'clock that maybe you are listening, because I hear you. I see you, how people are getting hurt already, how the benefits of Social Security are already being affected, how rural places, Social Security offices are being closed already. And the question of why, under the guise of efficiency, but you're hurting our elders who deserve dignity in their retirement. I read letters, and it actually got me emotional in the middle of the night, where somebody would detail all their challenges. They would render personal information to me in letters about their struggles with health care, about their conditions, about their pain, about their hurt, just sending it out to their government official that they've never probably met, hoping that they might just listen to you and be activated by your voice. But then many of them ended the letter with that question: I am here to help you in any way. It really moves me because I believe in the deep decency of our country.
It's important to note that this speech is not a filibuster, since it's not happening during a debate on a specific measure to block proceedings. So what is the end game here? We asked CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian.
Well, this really is designed to raise attention, of course, as we have been covering many of these town halls over the course of several weeks now. Certainly there has been an outcry from a number of Democratic constituents and voters that Democrats should do more, that they should speak up, that they should be more forceful in resisting the Trump administration policies. And so in the case of Senator Booker, that is largely what he has dedicated this marathon floor speech to, is decrying the policies of the Trump administration, whether it is the DOGE cuts, whether it is efforts to dismantle the Department of Education, efforts to dismantle USAID, Republican efforts to try to gut Social Security and Medicaid. You know, you name it, Senator Booker has probably spoken about it. So that is why, furthermore, he has also accused his Senate colleagues, particularly on the other side of the aisle, of turning a blind eye to this, about ceding power to the executive branch rather than being a check on the executive branch, and encouraging his colleagues to do their job, to stand up for the Constitution and to execute the oath of their office in terms of Congress stepping up to do its role, rather than just allowing the administration to roll through with all of these changes.
Nicole Killian. Voters head to the polls in Wisconsin and Florida, the high-stakes election, and why the race is drawing national attention. Next, you're watching CBS News 24/7. Voters casting ballots today to decide the fate of two high-stakes elections. In Florida, we follow two special elections to replace the seats vacated by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Matt Gaetz. And in Wisconsin, we follow an unusually competitive race for a seat on the state's Supreme Court. Wisconsin's Supreme Court race pits Dane County Judge Susan Crawford against Waukesha County Judge Brad Schimmel. Crawford backed by Democrats, Schimmel endorsed by Republicans. So the race in the battleground state, now the most expensive judicial election in American history. So far, the campaigns and their supporters have spent more than $98 million. Hefty endorsements and campaign appearances coming from big names like Elon Musk and Senator Bernie Sanders. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe has more.
Just a race for one seat on the 7-member state Supreme Court of Wisconsin, but more than $81 million has already been spent to try to win the seat. Wisconsin, of course, a presidential battleground. This is the first major political contest anywhere since President Trump took office. And issues like abortion rights, labor rights, the environment, congressional redistricting, and other election laws could come before this high court in the coming years. And that's why so many wealthy people from outside Wisconsin are spending money here, hoping to influence policy. Elon Musk, the wealthiest man in the world, his PAC has spent more than $12 million. He donated $3 million personally to the Wisconsin Republican Party. On the Democratic side, the Illinois Governor, J.B. Pritzker, put up $1.5 million to the Wisconsin Democratic Party. George Soros threw in about another $2 million. Several others have written big checks. Local experts suggest part of the reason these outside groups and wealthy people want to play in a judicial election is it's kind of easier money. You're not necessarily spending as much or putting in as much time as you might with a governor's race, state legislative races, or congressional races. But if you can swing the ideological balance of a major battleground state's high court, you could be helping influence the debate over things like abortion, labor rights, the environment, and who ultimately controls Congress. Liberal candidate Susan Crawford faces Republican-backed and conservative candidate Brad Schimmel. Both parties quite invested in the outcome of this. President Trump has been actively using social media to promote Schimmel. Democrats are pushing for Susan Crawford, former President Obama among them. The winner gets called sometime around 8 p.m. Central Time tonight. Back to you.
Meantime, in Florida, 2 special elections tests how voters feel about President Trump's agenda. Voters casting their ballots to decide who will fill congressional seats vacated by Matt Gaetz and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. So CBS News congressional reporter Torian Small joining us live now from Palm Coast, Florida. Republicans holding a razor-thin majority in the House right now. Torian, thanks for joining us. Tell us about the candidates and what's at stake right now.
Well, Jules, this is a pretty peculiar race considering this district is solidly red and has been for quite some time. Considering Mike Waltz won his race here in November by 30-plus points, President Donald Trump also won his race here for president in this district by 30-plus points. Democrats went into this thinking that this could be a foregone conclusion, that they might not be able to compete. But what we have seen, though, is momentum fall quite a bit behind the Democrat in this race, Josh Weil, who is a political outsider. He is a public school teacher, touts himself as a single dad, and he's outraised quite a bit Randy Fine. Bigger name ID, state senator here, and he came into this raising $10 million compared to Fine's $1 million in this race. Though we're still expecting or anticipating Republicans to finish first in this race, though the margin is what we're watching, Jules.
So Elon Musk certainly pouring a lot of money into these special elections. So what is the reaction from voters about that?
Yeah, it's mixed reactions. Republicans that we talk to who support the president are also behind his efforts to massively shrink the government and using Elon Musk to do so. There are also some Republicans who are a bit on the fence, if not outright upset at this effort, including this one Republican we talked to. She hasn't voted for Trump since 2016, but she's now emboldened to vote for Democrats in this race because of Elon Musk's involvement. Take a listen to what she had to say.
I am a registered reporter, a Republican, but I voted Democratic, okay?
Wow. Okay, what made you vote for the Democrat this time?
Because of our system, this is what's going on in America right now, especially with Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I'm 74 and I don't like what's going on, this spirit of division, dividing our country.
Her concerns echoes those of Democrats we talked to today and yesterday as we were on the ground looking to read in on this race. Quite a few of them quite concerned with Elon Musk, many of them touting the very significant and ubiquitous messaging behind Weil's campaign, which is Social Security is on the ballot, Jules.
All right, Torian Small. Torian, thank you. Under the leadership of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., some employees are getting pink slips at the Department of Health and Human Services. The layoffs, they're starting today. They're impacting agencies responsible for research, tracking disease, and regulating food. So some employees found out that they lost their jobs when they arrived at work this morning. Some of them discovered that their security badges didn't work. And in the confusion, employees were stuck in long lines around the Health and Human Services building. One of the offices closing is in San Francisco, and that is where we find CBS News Bay Area's Veronica Macias.
We spoke with the regional program manager who's in charge of 65 people in her division, all being let go, and they call the news devastating and heartbreaking for people who have made a career here at HHS. And while the writing was on the wall, and this comes as no surprise to them, they call the layoffs chaotic and also a blow to public health services. This morning, employees received a brief email informing them about their terminations, and many of the people we talked to say they've been here for years. Imagine working somewhere for 25 years and being let go because the administration, they say, believes your job is useless. Workers say last week they received the news that 5 out of 10 offices were going to be scrapped completely, but there was no indication what offices. And while the administration is aiming to cut some 10,000 jobs to streamline work, these cuts, according to workers, will soon impact the greater public. Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in a statement saying, "We are realigning the organization with its core mission and our new priorities in reversing the chronic disease epidemic."
These are the services that serve the taxpayer, and they are gone. The people who administer these programs are gone. So I don't think the regular taxpayer understands how government works and how these services actually serve them until they don't get their Social Security payment, they don't get their SNAP, they don't get their welfare check.
As for the workers let go today, they say they're going to take a deep breath for the remainder of the day, then decide how they're going to appeal this decision and take legal action. As for former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, she also immediately reacted, slamming the decision and calling it short-sighted.
Let's get to our breaking news correspondent, Chanel Call, now in the CBS newsroom in New York. I know you're following 2 big developments right now. Let's start with the crash in Boston.
Right, some dramatic images, Jules, from that crash today. It happened at around 12:45 p.m. in Boston's Chinatown neighborhood. At the latest from authorities this hour, 6 people were injured, including the driver there. 4 people were taken to area hospitals. As for how this happened, Jules, in a press conference earlier this afternoon, Suffolk's district attorney said at this point they don't have any reason to believe that this was intentional. And Boston's police commissioner also said it appears to be a, quote, tragic accident more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're also hearing about new developments in the case against the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO. So what is the latest in that case, Chanel?
Right, so the Justice Department sent out a statement late this morning from Attorney General Pamela Bondi's office, and I want to read you part of it. It says, quote, Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and father of 2 young children, was premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. After careful consideration, I've directed federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case as we carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. And just a bit of background here. Mangione's attorney had called the move by the Justice Department barbaric. In a statement, lawyer Karen Agnafilo said, quote, their decision to execute Luigi is political and goes against the recommendation of the local federal prosecutors, the law, and historical precedent. We know Mangione faces both state and federal charges in connection to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He has pleaded not guilty to the 11 state charges, but Jules so far has not yet entered a plea in the federal case.
All right, Chanel Call. Chanel, thank you. We are tracking another round of severe weather in the Midwest and the South. It comes after powerful storms swept through the region, killing at least 7 people. 4 of those deaths in Michigan, where the governor has declared a state of emergency in 10 counties. And that severe weather moved on to southeastern Alabama, where a suspected tornado ripped through a school near the Florida and Georgia state lines. Several students were injured when part of that roof collapsed. CBS News correspondent Skylar Henry is in Alabama with the latest on the damage there.
This is the mangled mess here in Dothan, Alabama, following Monday's severe storms in this area. This structure is now twisted metal, downed power lines, and additional debris. We're only about 2 blocks away from Dothan Prep. About 1,500 students go to the school. Parents who we spoke with said that their kids were inside of the gymnasium at the time of the suspected tornado when they noticed the ceiling lights begin to flicker, and then part of said ceiling then collapsed. Now some students say that they are concerned about going back into the building. We know that the district said that 5 had to either be seen by medical professionals on site or taken to area hospitals. They are all okay. Now the National Weather Service is here in the city assessing the damage.
Our social team has more content like this on TikTok and Instagram, so please follow us at the handle CBS News. All right, let's give you a live look now at Chicago, where at least 2 severe storms could hit the area this week, bringing heavy rain, strong winds, hail, and even a chance of tornadoes. So meteorologist Zoe Mintz joining us in our studio right now with more on this severe weather.
Yeah, I kind of just want to show you the past 24 hours
Okay.
because this was the line of severe weather right below our feet that brought the tornadoes, that brought a lot of damage across the southeast. And now all eyes are on more severe weather potential tonight and into tomorrow. And that's developing currently across the central parts of the country. Right now, it's actually, as you can see, bringing a lot of snow up across the northern parts of the country, across the Dakotas, across Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin, also bringing fire weather on the southern edge of that system. But we are beginning to see the potential for severe weather developing late tonight and into tomorrow. Right below my feet, it's including Kansas and Oklahoma, as a very strong line of thunderstorms will be making its way all across the country. So let's see that developing again. That will be late tonight and into early tomorrow morning. A brief break by the early afternoon, but then you see that strong line of thunderstorms develop across the Mississippi Valley and parts of the Midwest, where we are going to be seeing more potential for tornadoes, very strong winds, and there's going to be even more hail. That's why we have a level 4 out of 5 on our severe weather scale. This is over the Mississippi Valley. So let's break down the timing on this upcoming severe weather, because again, it's going to be a multi-day severe weather threat that begins tonight. There's that 10% risk of tornadoes over near Kansas and Oklahoma, but it extends from northern Texas all the way up towards Missouri, as we are going to be seeing again a couple of those severe thunderstorms developing late tonight. By tomorrow, we are going to continue to see again this line of thunderstorms. It's an overnight system over Oklahoma and across parts of the northern United States. It's not until tomorrow afternoon and evening, though, that we are going to be seeing that bigger threat for severe weather and tornadoes. And this is the early afternoon, 1 p.m. We're not looking at much, which is not a good thing, because all of this activity that is going to be developing is only going to be fueled by sunshine. And that sunshine earlier in the day is going to help fuel the severe weather that's going to develop later in the afternoon and evening. Again, over the Mississippi Valley, this is what we're most concerned about when it comes to tornadic activity. But it does extend all the way to Chicago and St. Louis, including Memphis. It's heading over to Cincinnati by the late night hours. Again, there's that 15% risk for tornadoes over the Mississippi Valley. It does include Memphis. It includes southern parts of Illinois and Indiana. Please stay safe. Again, it starts tonight and continues into tomorrow night. It is going to be a full 24 hours of severe weather as that storm moves across the country. So prepare now, because it's going to be a pretty damaging next 24 hours.
Good information. We'll continue to keep an eye on it. Zoe, thank you. A Maryland father deported to El Salvador by mistake. What happened? And what Joe Rogan is saying about how the administration is handling the deportations next. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Administration admitted in a court filing Monday that a, quote, administrative error and oversight resulted in a man being deported to a notorious prison in El Salvador despite a legal order prohibiting his removal. The Trump administration argues Kilmar Obrego Garcia is a member of the MS-13 gang. Take a listen.
The administration maintains the position that this individual, who was deported to El Salvador and will not be returning to our country, was a member of the brutal and vicious MS-13 gang. That is fact number one. Fact number two, we also have credible intelligence proving that this individual was involved in human trafficking. And fact number three, this individual was a member, actually a leader, of the brutal MS-13 gang, which this president has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Fact number four is that foreign terrorists do not have legal protections in the United States of America anymore.
CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman is here to break down this case for us. So, Katrina, first things first, how did he get deported when he had protected status?
Juliet, while the administration is defending this move now, as you mentioned, in a court filing, they admitted that this was an administrative error. ICE was aware that Mr. Abrego Garcia had this protected status here in the United States, but he was mistakenly sent to El Salvador. And we have also some sound here because there are even supporters of Donald Trump that are criticizing this decision, Juliet. Juliet, I spoke this morning with Mr. Abrego Garcia's attorney, and they are asking the court to order that he be returned to the United States. He says there is precedent for this. He has had clients who have been mistakenly deported in the past and been brought back to the United States when he alerted DHS and the Justice Department that this had been done in error. Now, what complicates this is that he has been put in an El Salvadoran prison, and that just makes it a little bit more difficult. But as his attorney pointed out, he's there because the United States sent him to El Salvador and asked El Salvador to put him there. The U.S. is also paying to have him in that prison. And as Joe Rogan was just talking about, this is someone who has been living and working in the U.S. He's married to an American citizen, and he has a 5-year-old son who is autistic and nonverbal. So they are making every effort to have him returned to the United States.
Katrina, another question. A judge is delaying the Trump administration's move to end temporary protected status for about 350,000 Venezuelan migrants. So what are the details there?
Juliet, what the judge is saying here is that Kristi Noem, when she asked to have this temporary protected status lifted, has not provided enough evidentiary support, and that there is a threat of irreparable harm to these migrants. In fact, the judge used very harsh language, Juliet, and said that it seems as though this is motivated by racial animus, that they are grouping all of these Venezuelan migrants together and alleging that they are all part of the Tren de Aragua gang, and on that basis, lifting this temporary protected status. So he is blocking that from happening while this case moves forward, because he says that this is really unconstitutional.
All right, Katrina Kaufman. Katrina, thank you. Now, to expedite the deportations, the Trump administration is invoking the Alien Enemies Act, which allows non-citizens from an enemy nation to be deported without due process during wartime. Congress passed the act in 1798 with the support of President John Adams as the U.S. anticipated a war with France. But it was only actually used 3 times in history: the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. The first time was during the War of 1812, when British nationals were required to register with the government. The second time was in World War I, when President Wilson invoked it against nations of the Central Powers. More than 6,000 enemy aliens were placed in internment camps under this law, and most recently, it was used during World War II, when residents from Japan, Germany, and Italy had to register. By the end of the war, 31,000 suspected enemy aliens, including Jewish refugees, were placed in internment camps. So under the Alien Enemies Act and an additional executive order, more than 100,000 Japanese Americans, most of them citizens, were also placed in internment camps. Well, joining me now is CBS News Bay Area anchor Ryan Yamamoto. And Ryan, you spoke to the Japanese American community in San Francisco about what they're saying about the recent invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. You actually visited them. What did they say?
Well, this is definitely dredging up some bad memories. I had a chance to visit the Japanese American Museum in San Jose that was built to educate and never forget a very dark time in American history. And as the JA community watches the Trump administration invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, it is sparking anxiety, sadness, even anger that 83 years later, history is repeating itself.
To take a step inside this tiny museum in San Jose is like walking into the past, where Tom Izu and Susan Hayase hope people will learn about a painful time for the Japanese American community.
We need to remember this history.
We never want this to happen again to any other people.
On December 7th, 1941, Imperial Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, thrusting America into World War II and sparking a rise in anti-Japanese sentiment. 120,000 Japanese living on the West Coast, 70,000 U.S. citizens, were rounded up and sent to one of 10 internment camps in the country.
It didn't matter if you were a citizen at all.
Tom's family was taken to the Poston camp in Arizona. Susan's family to the Amachi camp in Colorado.
It was unfair. It was racist.
To justify the incarceration of the Japanese, the U.S. government used the Alien Enemies Act of 1798.
The act basically says that when it is a declared war or a predatory incursion by a foreign government, then people can be removed.
It is the same act UC Law San Francisco professor Rory Little, who teaches constitutional law, says the Trump administration is now using to arrest and deport Venezuelan immigrants accused of being gang members and drug dealers, as those gangs are, quote, threatening an invasion or predatory incursion against the United States.
The administration today is saying, oh, you know, the invasion of our country by gangs that we say are effectively controlling a foreign government, that ought to be included within the compass of the statute.
Currently, the Federal Court of Appeals has put a temporary block on the Trump administration's interpretation of the Alien Enemies Act. The White House says it plans to appeal the case to the U.S. Supreme Court. Meanwhile, for those in the Japanese American community whose families were taken away without due process 83 years ago, it is like watching history repeat itself.
And this is just a travesty of justice. And when I look at these pictures of the barracks and think about my parents being there, I think of what a nightmare it is to be accused and not to be able to defend yourself.
And we should know, decades after those Japanese Americans were set free, President Reagan and Congress apologized for the internment, the U.S. government admitting it was indeed wrong.
Yeah, Ryan, so if Congress were to repeal the Alien Enemies Act, then would that leave the United States vulnerable?
That's a really good question. So according to UC Law professor Rory Little, he says not likely. That's because at the time when the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 was set and it was originally invoked, basically there were no immigration laws on the books. But that's not the case now. There are several laws dedicated to immigration, espionage, and national security. And Democrats are trying to repeal it right now. But of course, Republicans have control of Congress, so that's not likely to happen.
All right, Ryan Yamamoto, thank you for that story. We know dating can be rough, but now Tinder is rolling out a new tool for singles to test out their flirting skills. Yes, we'll explain next. You're watching CBS News 24/7. A new feature on the dating app Tinder allows users to brush up on their flirting skills by talking to an artificial intelligence chatbot.
Doing a great job, hon. This is how I know you have taste.
Want to go on a dragon ride? Holler at me.
That's kind of you.
I sure am, Nathan.
Thanks for the chat. See you around.
No! Oh my goodness, Tinder released a new in-app feature called the Game. Let's bring in tech journalist Yasmin Khorram to talk about this flirting with an AI chatbot. What? Tell us about this.
Yes, flirting with an AI chatbot, just like every other industry, Tinder is getting into AI, this time to hopefully help you land a date on its app. Tinder is partnering with OpenAI's ChatGPT to create short, highly exaggerated rom-com scenarios. The point is to date their chatbot using your flirting skills, and you'll get some real-time feedback and advice. So if you're too aggressive, the chatbot won't really be into that. You also can't be too sheepish. You got to know what you want. It's this delicate dance of curiosity and warmth. Tinder tells me that this is all about making flirting fun, boosting your confidence. They want to make it less intimidating, really break down that scary wall of flirting with people and take it into real life. Tinder has 50 million monthly active users, Juliet.
True.
Half of them are Gen Z. This is clearly targeting that group. There's been a lot of posts online about it. People are having fun.
I'm sure they're having fun, but when they get face-to-face, what happens? We'll have to see on that, on the game, if they're kind of in their inner ear telling them how to move in real life. Okay, moving on. So now we're talking about all of these AIs, you know, this chatbot infiltrating our daily lives. I mean, how helpful is it, though, in the end game?
Yes. I mean, it is every day we're talking about it. We talked about therapy bots yesterday.
Yes.
Today it's flirting with chat bots. Tinder is the perfect example of dipping into AI and the chat bot craze and using it to sharpen some kind of skills. But beyond that, there's these AI companionship apps we're hearing about. People are starting to fall in love with these AI bots.
Oh, gosh.
I know. Girlfriends, boyfriends, partners are these bots. And there's a market for it. ARK Invest estimates that $70 billion could be made within the next 6 years from AI companionship platforms.
Oh my goodness.
Shocking.
Sure, the bots know what to say and at the right moment.
Yeah, it's all fun and games, and then you fall in love with an AI bot.
Until you go home to your significant other. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. All right. A volcano eruption in Iceland forces homes and a popular tourist attraction to evacuate. That's next. You're watching CBS News 24/7. China launched another round of large-scale military exercises near the island of Taiwan. CBS News foreign correspondent Anna Korn has the latest on how the Trump administration is reacting.
In a show of force, China sent a dozen warships and over 70 military aircraft in drills encircling Taiwan. China's foreign ministry said the exercises are, quote, a strong deterrent against separatist forces advocating for Taiwan independence, calling Taiwan's president, Lai Ching-te, a parasite. This is not the first time. Back in May, a simulated attack on the territory included live-fire missile exercises. But today's move comes at a pivotal moment for the world economy, just a day before President Trump's anticipated tariff announcements. President Trump has recently said that an invasion of Taiwan would be catastrophic.
So it would have a big impact if something should happen with Taiwan.
At the end of his Asia tour on Sunday, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the U.S. would ensure a credible deterrence across the Taiwan Strait. And Taiwan is preparing, holding its own war drills in the critical waterway last month, simulating a Chinese invasion, calling China the world's biggest troublemaker.
Other news we're following around the world. At least 4 people are dead after an Israeli military strike on a building south of Lebanon's capital. Israel says it was targeting a member of the Hezbollah military group. More than 2,700 people are dead after an earthquake hit Myanmar. It was the second most powerful earthquake on record to hit the country. The humanitarian crisis was made worse by an ongoing civil war. Dozens of homes, as well as a popular Icelandic resort, the Blue Lagoon, were evacuated ahead of a volcanic eruption in Iceland today. Right now, the volcanic fissure is about 500 yards long and reached a protective barrier. There are fears it could grow further. The volcano also erupted last year after being dormant for about 800 years. America Decides with Major Garrett is next. Major talks with Dr. Deborah Birx. She was the White House coronavirus response coordinator under President Donald Trump from 2020 to 2021. You're watching CBS News 24/7.